If you're a small business owner, you've got a million things on your plate, and video marketing is probably one of those things. But here's the real question. Do you really need to hire a professional video team, or can you actually just whip this out and call it a day? In this video, I'm breaking down when a cell phone is more than enough and when you need to pony up and get professional video production to solve your business problems. I'll show you how to use both to maximize your content needs, build brand authority and trust, and connect with your audience. So whether you're a solopreneur or running a small team, this could change the way that you think about video forever. Welcome back. It's Robert Teegarden here again with another video. Today we are talking about the difference between a cell phone and a cinema camera and when you would have a need for both as a business owner communicating and utilizing video marketing as part of your marketing strategy. If you're new here, welcome. I post content on a weekly basis on filmmaking tips and the business of being a creative. If that's something that you're into, stick around. There's a ton of value here on this channel. The first place I want to talk about is to demystify this myth that cell phones are somehow just as good and can do the job as cinema cameras. Like for instance, right now I'm doing both. Like this is the cell phone and this is the cinema camera. There's a difference. And if you're one of those people that's just like, I don't know, it really just looks the same to me. I don't understand how the difference can be perceived. I have news for you. There is a massive difference for a reason. First place to start when talking about the differences between cinema cameras and cell phones is to talk just sheerly about the sensor size. You can see in this image the difference between the two. A full frame sensor that you would find on some sort of a cinema camera is enormous when you compare it to some sort of smartphone. So as far as camera images go, size really does matter, and it's not just because of vanity. The actual larger sensor allows for more data and information to be captured about the image that you're looking at so that you can manipulate that image later on during post. It's kind of like trying to solve a puzzle and only having a finite amount of information versus all of the data set pieces, and it gives you a lot more flexibility later on in post as well. Like this GoPro image as well, like it can look great, but there's just simply not as much information as there would be if I used a cinema camera, but obviously that's a lot harder to mount to my windshield when I'm driving down the 405 trying to get to a different job.
The other thing about cinema cameras is that they give you control, like way more control over what you would think as a cell phone camera. With a cell phone camera, you can change like the ISO and kind of tap your focus and those sorts of things. But with a cinema camera, you're able to control all of the elements of that image. So things like the white balance, the shutter speed, the aperture, all of those sorts of things that allow you to create the image that you want that's not bound by some particular type of software that's embedded on a phone. It just gives you the ability to control the image when you want to and how you want to. So higher end productions, you tend to want that type of control to get the image that you want to, especially things like this podcast production over here.
Now, I'm not trying to say that cell phones don't have their place in a marketing strategy. They absolutely do, but it's kind of a specific use case that they're really acceptable for. And so I kind of think about these things in two different ways. If you want quick, easy, informal ways of communicating and getting messages out, a cell phone is a perfect way of doing this. When you start to move yourself further down the buying cycle and getting people to really understand what product it is that you sell, and especially if you sell a higher end product, when you get further down the buying cycle, you need to have more curated and strategic video content that is going to align with the actual brand image and brand equity you're trying to convey to your customers. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. I actually do some work for this company called Dad Gang. They're a hat company. I think they average around 700 hats sold a day. And the hats are around $35, $40, something like that. So not a tremendously high price point, but what they do have are certain exclusives that they do with particular athletes, kind of collabs that they're putting together. And so we went on a trip to New York in September, and there are two different objectives that we had. Now, one of them was to capture an interview with a professional baseball player, talk about this particular hat, and give marketing materials that were going to be used for sponsored ad posts. So all of that content was cinema camera stuff. It was lit well, audio capture was great. It's something that's going to last longer than a particular post for the week. But as as we were wandering through the streets of New York and doing certain things, the owners of that company ran into several different people wearing their hats and pushing their kids around. Now that's a perfect example of when a cell phone is the actual capture, because it's this instantaneous one-to-one connection to your audience that should feel natural and organic and easy, so that you can have that sense of like behind the scenes a little bit, right? So those two different examples, kind of that spectrum of where they're appropriate, is a great way of looking at this. Now, another way of thinking of this, kind of further drive this point home, could you imagine the cell phone commercial that Kanye put up to sell some sort of Yeezys on the Super Bowl being used to purchase something from Hermes or a Lexus or Rolls-Royce? Could you use the same cell phone footage to justify that luxury price point? Of course you couldn't. There's no way that that would happen, especially in a situation like the Super Bowl. It is an acceptable thing for someone like Kanye to be able to put something like that in front of us, and for us to go like, sure, I'll buy his weird foamy space looking shoes and not think really much of it. But if I'm going to spend several $100,000 on a particular thing, or like $5,000 on a purse or whatever it is, I need that brand image to feel like it's reflexive of the money and the luxury I'm about to spend. And so in those instances, highly curated photography and videography make the difference, and it implants in the customer that there is value that's worth paying for, because you as the company took the time to invest in the type of image and authority that they're looking for when you create that type of content. So when I look at things like cell phone versus cinema camera, the cell phone is like showing up in a pair of sweats. It's perfectly acceptable in most situations, but at some point in time, you have to put on a tuxedo and go to the gala. You gotta go to prom in a suit, and those two things need to have their respective places. The cell phone is like sending a super informal text message with all kind of lowercase and no punctuation, and no one really cares. But the cinema camera is the email that you proofread, that you ask your significant other to read through to make sure that all of your points are perfect and your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. There's a formality to this that lasts longer, and that's on purpose. Now, to think about this in a little bit more formal terms, I think it's easy for us to start to think about cell phone footage as something that sits on the top of the funnel of an acquisition cycle. So when you're thinking of prospecting clients and bringing them through your marketing funnel so that they can convert and become a customer, cell phone footage is usually something that brings awareness. And there is a ton of smaller pieces of content that the informal nature of them is designed to kind of seed and bring awareness to your brand on social. It's also a way in which we as consumers can connect to the brand and get a better sense of what that brand is all about, so that we can align ourselves with the kind of personality and the brand equity and value that we see there. We become fans of the brand more frequently through these top of funnel cell phone type content than we do these more highly produced pieces of content. But as you bring your buyer down this buyer cycle, they're going to need more curated touch points for them to be able to make that buying decision, especially, like I mentioned, if that price point is something that is more than $100. To put a point on this idea, the further down the buying cycle the prospect gets, the more you need to invest in the ROI of curated strategic video that is going to last. Another perfect example is when we did this project for Easton, and we were launching a set of catcher's gear that had a bunch of different features that needed to be explained. There's no real way that we could have done this with a cell phone. Now, all cell phones actually played a huge role in the rollout of this particular product launch, because the person that this gear was made after had a great presence online. So she used cell phones to communicate and to connect with her audience and tell them why she was excited about this particular product. But we used very curated technical videos to talk about all of the different specifics of those products, so that we could get those those things across and have it last longer. Now, those videos landed on Amazon, they landed on Dick's Sporting Goods, they landed on the website of the company. Now, we still utilize cell phone footage to bring awareness to potential customers that this product existed, but they didn't shell out the several $100s on that particular product because of the video they saw online. They saw the actual product video and the tech video that launched these things that gave them a deeper, more intimate understanding of where their money was going towards and what they were receiving when they shelled out their hard-earned cash. So things like product videos, explainer videos, podcasts, brand films, things that are going to have a longer lifespan and your customers are going to experience for a longer period of time are all reasons to invest in quality video production. But by all means, utilize your cell phone for day-to-day communication and quick grabs. And we also grab our cell phones all the time in product launches as we're talking, right? There's a whole reason for us to have that instantaneous communication. People expect that, and it's all part of a seamless strategy that we use that effectively utilizes video as a communication tool to bring customers closer to that buying decision. If you like this video, ladies and germs, like the damn video. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for posting notifications. If you enjoy this sort of content, leave me some more comments down below. What are you looking to see? If you like what you're seeing and you want to learn more about it, we have a free video marketing playbook that's linked in the description below that talks about the different types of video that you can use as a business owner to effectively communicate with your customers and where to use it. It's complete with clickable playlists that you can see examples of videos that you can utilize and apply in your video strategy. And if you're a freelancer looking to connect with us, I also have a freelancer work form that you can fill out and tell us who you are, what you do, what your price points are, because we're always looking for people to add to our team to help us effectively do our job. With that in mind, ladies and germs, this is Teegarden with another video in the can. We'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.